Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole for the Village of Bartlett. Committee of the Whole meeting for the Village of Bartlett, January 13th, 2026. I ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Bannerman.
Here.
Daney.
Here.
Gansey.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
LaPorte.
Here.
Sawanski.
Here.
President Gunstein.
Here. That motion carries. That'll take us to the town hall portion of the meeting. If there's anybody that'd like to address the board, please do so by stepping up to the podium, state your name and address. Try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. All right. Nobody's here. Nobody's online. That'll close the town hall portion of it and take us to standing committee reports, Public Works and Golf Committee Chairman Daney.
I'm sorry?
Nope, that's old.
I think it's Finance Committee Chairman LaPorte.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight's discussion for the committee agenda will be the proposed capital budget 2 discussion, and I'll hand it over to staff.
Thank you, Trustee LaPorte. So I am going to kind of be jumping all over the place, so I think the board should have a hard copy of just the pages I'm going to go over, so if you want to follow along. Last week, Dan and Tyler went through the projects, so tonight I'm going to do a quick little summary and then go through some fund projections. And before I dive into the numbers, I just wanted to draw your attention to a paragraph on the second page of the transmittal letter. So that paragraph reads, while the capital improvements program anticipates expenditures over a 5-year period, the immediate focus is on 2026-27, which is referred to as the capital budget. These projects will become part of the operating budget that will be developed in the next few months. The capital budget for fiscal year 2026-27 is $17,080,000. A complete listing of the 2026-27 projects can be found on page T10. So at the next board meeting, when the board is asked to approve the capital budget, I just want to make it clear that you're not improving the entire 5-year program. You are just approving fiscal year 2026-27 for the $17,080,000. This will then roll into our operating budget that is presented to the board over the next couple months. The reason we do it this way is so these big infrastructure projects, Dan and Tyler can take those out to bid now instead of waiting till the operating budget gets approved in April.
I think the printout doesn't have it, just so you know.
Not have what?
The printout's like missing something.
It's on the first page, right after the first page. He's
Oh,
reading.
there's missing a page though, but, okay, I see this one now.
So then page T10, again, is basically what the board would be approving at the next board meeting. So this lists all the projects, the budget amounts, and which funds they would be coming out of for 2026-27. And on to a few summary pages. So on page T1 is the expenditure summary for the 5-year program. This totals $118,036,651. So for fiscal year 2025-26, that's the current year we are in, we are estimating the capital expenses to be $20.15 million. Fiscal year 2026-27, which again is considered the capital budget, that's the $17.08 million. So that's down about $3 million from the prior year. The reduction is mainly due to sewer expenses going down $2 million, and this is due to the completion of the Devon excess flow project, as well as the wastewater treatment plant project. And then streets is going down about $1 million due to the completion of the town center improvements and a reduction in the North and Oak resurfacing project. Fiscal year 2027-28 will go up about $6 million to $23.4 million. Much of this increase is for the water main replacement project, the water tower painting, and $4.75 million for the Country Creek project. Fiscal year 28-29 is going to be a big year. It goes up about $10 million to $33.5 million. Much of this increase is for the new water tower, which is budgeted for $6 million. And at this point, that would be dependent on getting an IEPA loan. There's also a $3.3 million budget for a second centrifuge at the treatment plant, which again would be dependent on getting an IEPA loan. There's $1.5 million for the Oak Avenue realignment in the Lake Street TIF. We still have the $4.75 million for the Country Creek project, $1 million for the Newport culvert replacement, and $4 million for the Schick Road Bridge. So a lot of projects that year. 29-30 expenses drop back down about $10 million to $23.8 million, with Country Creek, Schick Bridge, and the centrifuge projects dropping off. Going to the next page is just a chart showing expenditures by category. So you can see water makes up 32% of total expenses, streets 28%, the other category 16%, sewer 14%, and economic development 10%. Next page is just a chart showing expenditures by funding source. So 24% of expenditures will get expensed out of the general fund, 14% out of water, 14% out of MFT, and 9% out of sewer. And these are going to be the four funds that I go through the fund projections for. So I figured I'd start with the most challenging fund at the moment, and that is our water fund. So here's a list of all the water projects. I'm going to start just by going through fiscal year 27. That's the capital budget year. So again, we have $2 million for water main replacement, $250,000 for infrastructure improvements. I think more specifically, that's the Hanover Park interconnect. Am I saying that right? And then $750,000 to wrap up the water meter change-out program for a total of $3 million. And then on the next page is my water fund projections going back to 2023 through fiscal year 27. The blue is the minimum level required, green is the maximum, and then red is the actual cash or projected cash. So you can see in 24, our cash was up over 10 million. In 25, it took a really big hit and came down to 5.6 million. There were a lot of big expenses this year. So we had 1.7 million for the water meter change-out program, 3.2 million for the water main replacement project, 1.3 million for the water tower painting, and 645,000 for the Stearns pump station. And then for the current year, fiscal year 26, I'm projecting cash to drop from the 5.6 million down to 4 million. Big expenses this year were the 2.25 million for the water meter change-out program and 635,000 for the water tower painting. And then for the next fiscal year, next budget year, fiscal year 27, I'm projecting the cash to go down from the 4 million down to the minimum balance of 3.5 million. So this is where we were kind of hoping to have a higher budget for our water main replacement program, but to stay above the minimum level, we did drop the budget down to 2 million. My projections for fiscal year 27 do include the 8% water rate increase that was approved by the board, as well as $1 million transfer from the capital projects fund, which again, it would be the COVID funds. And then going back to the water project, so going past fiscal year 27, the big expense is going to be the water main replacement program. And this goes back to the water sewer study where they recommended that we replace at least 1% of our water mains every year. So Dan's budget numbers here for the 5.75 million reflect that. And just to give the board an idea of what we used to do, so we had been doing about 1.2 million every year for the water main replacement, and then more recently we're doing 3.5 million every other year. So you can see this is a big investment. The yearly budget for the water main replacement would be going up by about 4 million every year. So going to the next page, and this is my projections for fiscal year 2026 through 2030. This does include rate increases of 8% for 2027 through 2030. So you can see, even with those 8% increases, our cash would fall off a cliff. By 2030, it would be close to a negative $7 million. So that is why the water sewer study stated that half of the costs for the water main project from fiscal years 2028 through 2036 would have to be funded by bonds. So that would be about $30 million. We would probably do 3 separate bond issuances for $10 million each. So again, on the next page, it's the same chart. Rate increases of 8% through 2027 through 2030. This shows a bond issuance of $10 million in fiscal year 2027. So you see in 27, our cash will go way up, and then by 2030, it would be back down right around the minimum balance, and it would be at this point, we'd have to issue that second bond issuance for $10 million. And at this point, I kind of anticipate the issuance of bonds to come back to the board probably late June, early fall. So that's all I had for water. Unless there's any questions, I'll move on to sewer.
Good.
What's the point of not going for an IEPA loan for water main replacements?
I think those are harder to get, and it would take longer to apply for an IEPA loan.
Is it worth the effort?
We can definitely look at it, but right now, what we've been told is with the lead services taking a big portion of the IEPA loan stuff, that water main is kind of they score based on priority of things, and just straight water main replacement isn't scoring as high as maybe it would have without the lead service, but we can definitely pursue that when we start looking at things. But it does, as Matt had said, we're looking at getting this implemented this year. The loan program takes like a couple of years just to get into the system and then go through the whole process. So you're looking at 2 to 3 years in order to get those loans. So it might be something where you could do the bonds this year to keep the funding going, but maybe the second 10 million could be a loan, and that's what we're actually looking at, because we have the water tower and that we would try to lump water projects into one, and it'd be 10, it may be different than 10, but it would be 10 plus whatever the water tower, we could look at something larger at that point.
Is there more restrictions on projects if you get an IEPA loan versus a bond?
The restriction would be more on how you score. Like I said, the lead services right now is high priority. That's getting all the money right now. If you run into a situation where if you get into violation, you score higher, or hopefully we don't get into violation issues, but those are the type of things that kind of raise your score to get IEPA loan funds.
Matt, you're basing this off of the 8% increase over the 5-year period, correct?
Sorry, say that again?
You're basing these projections off of our 8% water increase, right? In 2028, you're projecting a $10 million bond. Is that what I'm reading here? For the 2028?
We would have to issue it in 2027 for it to be available for 2028.
Okay. So that's 10 million for 28, 10 million for 29, and 10 million for 2030. Is that how I'm reading?
10 million, so we would issue the bonds in 2027. That's where the 10 million comes from.
The first 10 million.
Correct. And then the next 10 million would be in 2030.
When's the next 10 million? The third one you said.
So the second one would be 2030. The third one would be 3-4 years after that.
Where does it stop?
So the water sewer study, they did like a 10-year. Mm-hmm. So I think the point of the 8% increases every year would be to get our revenues to a point where they would be able to support doing the water main replacement at 1% out of issuing bonds.
I mean, have we projected out past 2030 to see if we're going to need another 10 million and another 10 million?
No, I mean, the water sewer study did.
Yeah, I know, but will we need that? Will we have to project that?
At this point, oh, yeah, for sure.
So we're going to need to look at that again 4 years from now. Because we potentially need a fourth funding.
So, yeah, so there would be the three, and I still have to talk to our bond advisor, but the issue is you have to spend the bond proceeds within 3 years, so that's why we would do three separate ones. So that 10 million would take us 10 years out. So after that, yes, we would have to see where the numbers are and go from there.
You mean that 30 million? Because it's 10, 10, and 10.
Correct, 30 million.
Are you going to use the same bond advisor that the village has always used? Or do you have someone new that you've been working with?
We would stick with our bond advisor. She's moved to Raymond James. And she's really good. She's known as being really good. And I think when we do have the discussions late summer, she said she would come in and talk to the board.
It looks devastating when you see it fall off a cliff like that.
Yeah, I mean, when water main replacements is going from 1 million to 5 million every year, it's a big investment.
Yeah.
Like when you do a project that large or with that much volume, do you try to keep it in one area or do you like break it apart? Like, I mean, I just saw like North Avenue and how long that was, and that was just a small project compared to what we're talking about.
The $5 million is going to be a bit much bigger, so it will lend itself to an area where we would try to, like, we've been trying to get the downtown area replaced. So this next year, we actually have a section west of Oak that we're looking to do, but we still have other mains in that area to do. But then there's also, from our water modeling, there's sections of main throughout the village that would help with capacity needs, dead ends and stuff like that. So there'd be sections where we would do an area, but then we would also have these other pieces that we would be chipping away at trying to improve the system overall. So I see it being like that probably every year. We would have a group area and then sections throughout.
If we have a water main break, will that one just be replaced or repaired?
Breaks will be fixed because at that point, it's already happened. The best thing we can do is just get a clamp on it.
Get it working?
That's where we keep track of that. And if we get a bunch in a certain area, that rises up to the higher, to get replaced. If we're there every other day fixing, putting clamps on mains all over, then we look at just replacing that main.
That's that software that you were.
We have a modeling software that
Tracks it.
we can program all of the water tower levels. It has our whole system in there, and it kind of tells us our pressures, the volume, the flows going through it, our fire flows, all that stuff. So we have areas where we can improve, and that's where we look at the dead ends or where circulation isn't great, water quality will improve, that type of stuff.
So, in your opinion, do you think we're being too aggressive with the water main in the period of time that we're trying to do it in, from a financial standpoint?
I don't think it's being too aggressive. You could ramp it up, but 1% again is still counting on that water main to last 100 years, which it doesn't. But 1% is a good number. We've talked to other communities. That's what they're striving for, is to get to that 1%. So I think it's important to get the program going. Going back to that bubble that's going to come several years from now, but it's going to be here before we know it, where that main, when the bulk of our growth is going to hit that life cycle of mains where we could see an increase in main breaks, basically is what you'll end up experiencing, but we're trying to get ahead of that. So I would say we need to keep the program going. I would say it's not necessarily aggressive. It's a nice program, and it's 1%. So you're still at a 100-year life cycle that you're trying to get out of the pipe.
The only reason I'm asking, because when you see 28, 29, and 30 with the cliff, the opposite direction, are we better off implementing the raise of the water and taking 27, 28, 29 slower for water main replacements to let the fund catch up with the increase of the water rate? So we don't have to rely on the bonding or as much bonding.
Well, I think the water and sewer rate always anticipated kind of this 30 million, if you will, to help get that fund up and allow us to move forward. So you just, I mean, yes, we can go from 5 million to 4 million or 3, whatever that number is. It's just that less water main that you're doing, and it just kind of stretches things out. But yeah, it's flexible that we can adjust to whatever rate the board wants to do. But it's, you know, I think the bonding is going to be needed regardless. Maybe you do a little less, but to just because we don't have it in the bank right now. That's why
I just want to make sure that the rate increase covers the cost of the bonding. That's what I'm concerned about.
and that's what the 8 and 5, or well, the 8% on the water side is for, is to pay back the bonds and so that we can start the program, get those bonds in place, and that's what the 8% does, is it basically is.
Did that 8% water increase, and forgive me for not having it in front of me, but did that water increase include the cost of the bonds and the interest and the interest rate on those bonds?
Yeah, the 8% going forward the next 10 years is to help pay back the bonds as well. And if we didn't issue the bonds in 27, I mean, they would be able to do bare bones for the next few years as far as water main replacement goes.
Did the water study talk about the bonds? I don't remember that.
It did. Not in a ton of detail, but it did.
I just couldn't remember if it had the interest cost for the bonds in there. The total, the total cost. I wanted to make sure, what I want to make sure is the 8% increase in the water is enough and is covering the bond cost. That's all I want to make sure.
It is.
I noticed there's a project for the South Elgin Interconnect in 2027, 28. Is that necessary? And do they have the water supply that's compatible with our system?
I believe they do have a water supply that's compatible. We still have to do what we don't know is like what their pressure is versus ours and whether flows would work, or if something like a pump station would be needed. That's when we would say, okay, it's probably not worth it. But right now, why we plugged it in is South Elgin currently has a water main on the east side of 25 from a project they did years ago that would make it real easy for us to connect up to. So we want to at least do the investigation to see is it worthwhile, because it's right there. We would only have to, within the Blue Heron Business Park, make a connection to that and some valving, we're hoping. If it's more than that, then it might not be worth it, but it's something to look at.
By not doing that project, does it change anything drastically as far as the numbers?
Not really. It's not a big ticket item. It would be worth it if it is feasible to be able to help one or the other, whether they need water or whether if we can open up some valves and be able to supply water in an emergency situation. I think those things are, especially since it's on the west side of town, would be a good connection to have. We don't know if it will actually work at this point. So we wouldn't do the project unless we determine that it's worthwhile.
Do they currently get their water from wells?
Yeah. And they treat it, but our Lake Michigan water is higher quality, but in an emergency, you'll take just about anything you can get.
As we do these water main improvement projects, obviously it makes our system, tighter, makes it more efficient. Would there ever be a need possibly not to put that other water tower in?
That would be unlikely. The water tower gives us the flexibility in those emergencies, and we have requirements with the DuPage Water Commission on certain amount of storage that we have to have available. They have storage as well. Based on when they did the modeling, the engineers said that we should forecast this storage, and that's why we have it in our program, because that gives us that flexibility, assuming, you got grasslands, any other new subdivision, that's added demand, so your daily demand goes up, which means you need more storage to be able to cover a couple of days' worth.
Moving on to sewer. It's more straightforward than water. So here are the projects for sewer. Again, the big one from the water sewer study was that we need to put the sanitary sewer rehab back into the budget. So that's where you see the 1.1 million every year. And then the other big project the next 2 years are the lift station upgrades for 1.05 million. Next page has my sewer fund projections for 2025 through 2030. So you can see in 2025, the actual cash was close to 10 million. By 2030, and this does include 5% rate increases for 2027 through 2030. And then by 2030, we would be back close to the maximum level. And then I just wanted to point out another big expense in the sewer fund is we have debt service payments of about $2 million a year for the wastewater treatment plant IEPA loan. So that obviously plays a big part into these numbers. That's all for sewer, unless there's any questions. So moving on to the MFT fund. So the MFT fund is classified as a special revenue fund, which means the funds can only be used for certain uses, primarily building, maintaining, and improving local roads, bridges, and related infrastructure, such as sidewalks, streetlights, traffic signals, et cetera. So Nick, our village engineer, has to submit projects that we want to use MFT funds for to the state for approval. So you see here the 5-year program, total expenses coming out of MFT, total $16,920,000. I'm going to focus just on the capital budget year, 2026-27, with a budget of $3,375,000. Most of that is for the MFT maintenance program, which I believe Dan went over. So this, again, we're going to do every year to match up with the water main replacement being every year. The one issue is the MFT program can't support this every year. So you can see here we are budgeting $2.275 million out of the MFT fund. The remaining $2 million comes out of the general fund. And I just want to remind the board, this is why we implemented the municipal motor fuel tax at 3 cents per gallon, as well as the 0.75% increase to our home rule sales tax. Both of those took effect last July. Other projects using MFT funds in 26-27 are IDOT intersection improvements, specifically the Lake Street at Oak and Bartlett for $800,000. North Avenue and Oak Avenue resurfacing for $200,000, and then the Schick Road Bridge for $100,000. Next page has my MFT fund projections from 2025 through 2030. So you can see in 2025, our cash was close to $8 million. By 2030, we're going to be down to about $2 million. And just a reminder, MFT, there's no minimum or maximum, it's just whatever funds are there is what's available. Any questions on MFT? Move on to the last fund, which is our biggest fund, the general fund. You can see in 2026-27, we're budgeting $5,420,000 to come out of the general fund. The big projects are, as I just talked about, the $2 million for the MFT maintenance program, and then $1.64 million for all the bike path projects we have going on. In 27-28, there's a budget of $7,790,000 for the general fund. Again, $2 million for the MFT maintenance program, and just over $5 million for stormwater system improvements. And most of that would be for the Country Creek project. Country Creek, right? 2028-29, budget of $8,565,000. $2 million for the MFT maintenance program, and then just over $6 million for stormwater system improvements. Of that, 4.75 is for Country Creek, and $1 million is for the Newport Boulevard culvert replacement. And then in 29-30, a budget of $2,540,000, with $2 million of that being for the MFT maintenance program. And then the last page is my general fund projections going back to 2023 through 2029. So again, those first 3 years, are actual numbers. So you can see our balance in the general fund has continued to climb as our income tax and sales tax has done really well. I don't see much of a drop off for the current year, fiscal year 26, and then 27 through 29 is when you see it decline to just below the minimum in 2029. Again, a lot of that decline would be for the Country Creek project. So again, if that does not happen, we would have a decent surplus in our general fund, which would probably require discussions on what we would want to do with that, with what we would like to use the surplus for. So if the Country Creek project does not happen, we're going to have a good surplus in our general fund. So I think at that point, we might want to have discussions on what to do with it.
If it does happen, but we get other grants, then that would also change that.
Is there an estimate of what grants, what maximum amount we would receive via the grants? See 50% back, or 100%, or 20%?
It's kind of a challenging question because everything that we're hearing right now, we're applying for everything that we possibly can. One of the issues we're running into is most of the environmental, stormwater-related grants that are out there want like an environmental benefit. And in this, that means like native plantings and side slopes and all that stuff. And because we don't have the room, we basically are building walls so that they don't like on the environmental enhancement side of things. So we're trying to be creative and see where we could qualify so we can get some of that funding. We've been talking to the county. They're going in with us to sponsor with us, so hopefully that will help. But as far as to support. Well, the county does have some smaller, very small, $50,000, $100,000 type things that they said that we could be eligible for. But the big ticket dollars are through like the Army Corps and the DNR and those types. Those are the ones where they're helping us. We put in an application this past year. We'll continue applying to see where we can qualify for it. We're hoping to get 50%. I mean, a lot is, like I said, is that environmental benefit. If there's something we can do to try to make our score go up to make it eligible, then we would. But okay, we're looking at everything.
Looks like we have a lot of bike path maintenance projects scheduled for 26 and 27. Is there any reason why we haven't just evened this out over the next the whole 3 years instead of the first year coming up?
It's mainly, the big projects are the Route 59 underpass and the Naperville Road PED crossing for the tracks. So those are big projects that right now, Metra has told us they have the Naperville Road crossing scheduled for this year. And then we're in the process of trying to get the permits through IDOT, but if that were to come through, then we would like to move forward with that so that you have that connection, because we're working with DR Horton too, to have the bike path connected. So it'd be connected from the east side of 59 at West Bartlett all the way up to the north side of the tracks on Naperville. So you would have a bike crossing for those
Underneath
residents.
59, that parallels the Metra, or the track,
Correct.
correct? So if we don't get that particular project in this 26 to 27, that'll be pushed off into one of the
Next
other
year.
years?
Right.
And what is that going to connect to on the east side of 59?
It'll connect up to the path on the south side of West Bartlett. So there'll be, if you know where Maryville's driveway is, there will likely, we're looking at putting a crossing there with a rapid flashing PED crossing, so that people would be able to hit the button, it'll flash, cars are supposed to stop, they can get to the south side. Then you've got the bike path on the south side of West Bartlett. That'll bring you downtown.
So I also want to add that as part of the development agreement that we had in place for the Grassland subdivision, there are timeframes where the construction has to occur or the developer doesn't have to contribute as much.
But that path comes up on the north side of West Bartlett Road. The tracks are on the north side of West Bartlett Road.
The,
It comes behind Savory along the tracks, and it comes across the front, perpendicular to it, and it dead ends at Bartlett Road where they're going to put a crossing.
yeah, if you know where, right at the northeast corner of West Bartlett and 59, there's that treed area. That is now the Park District's. DR Horton, per the agreement, is required to build a bike path from
Through there.
right through there to connect up to the, basically the Maryville driveway, and that's how it's connecting up.
How much is the amount that we would lose if we did not move that, if we move that to a different year from DH Horton?
They wouldn't have to put in the connection on the east side.
They're only obligated at that point to put a sidewalk along the north side of West Bartlett.
So what's their end date for that? What's,
Start this year, this upcoming fiscal year.
The amount we receive should be about the same. It's just expenditures are going up.
Can you talk about Kohler Field yet? And the lighting?
I don't think we've gotten there yet, but
I mean, I'm not going over it.
he's not going, so, yeah, if you have any questions.
What's the plan?
Kohler Field, the plan is the baseball fields that the village owns, that the Little League runs, would be converted to LED. All of the stadium lights there would be converted to LED. That's the plan. I know we've had complaints that a lot of the lights are out. So when we started looking at it, we said, why don't we look at what it would take to convert them to LED? And that's what that budget is for.
These lights obviously conducive for baseball use and things of that nature. I know you also mentioned maybe some drainage stuff over there.
So it also included funds to improve the football field out there because drainage has been an issue. So we've talked to, the Park District gave us some contractors that they work with and that do football fields, because I don't know much about drainage for football fields. And they came up with some different recommendations on soil drainage of the fields. There's also, we also threw in some funds to, there's a pond right to the south, so there's some under drains that could be added. So that's really kind of the resurface the football field and improve the drainage. My understanding is like on the sidelines is where it gets, where it all collects, and when the kids are, rain type game, it just gets trashed. So we want to try to drain that to prevent the field from getting destroyed during a wet event.
Could you guys meet with the Bartlett Little League to talk about some of the fields out there at Kohler Field, just so everybody is on the same page and you guys can understand what their needs are and they can understand what the village can and can't do and things like that?
Definitely.
Is it worth looking into Commonwealth Edison's funding for the lights versus outright buying them, or is that what?
We are trying to see what we can get as far as the rebates and incentives that are offered. So part of that is, right now, what's in the budget is a full amount. If we're able to get any of those rebates, then it would come down from there.
You guys all wrapped up then? All right. If there's no further questions, that's the end of the budget review.
Oh, yeah, we're going to adjourn to executive session. Pursuant to section 2C6 to discuss the selling the, setting, the price or sale or lease of property owned by the public body. I get a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Gaines, second by trustee LaPorte. Please call the roll.
Yes.
Daney,
Yes.
Gansey,
Yes.
Hopkins, Laporte,
Yes.
Swansky.
Yes.
We are adjourned.